Hi.
So happy to have you here today on Stories Worth Telling.
Thank you for asking me to be on the show.
And you have a really interesting story that I would like to hear about. You had an entire career where you worked your whole life, had a successful career, and then you quit. But now what are you doing?
Well, I wouldn't call it quitting. I retired from teaching after 37 years.
That's a long time.
It is a long time.
Congratulations for all of that hard work and teaching.
Thank you. You know, the end of my teaching career really turned out to be the best 5 to 10 years, because I started being able to tune into kids in a different way. Part of it was because my children were grown and off, and I could concentrate fully on the students that were now in my charge.
So you understood them better, your children had grown up, you'd had some life experiences yourself, you weren't so nervous about all the rules and the curriculum and what to say and how to say it. You already had that down, so you could kind of just really focus on you and the child and your relationship.
It's true, and I had a group of about 6 kids, high school kids, who were all on the autistic spectrum, and I was charged with teaching them social skills. And they would come every other day for 80 minutes.
That's a long time.
That's a really long time, especially when you're poking at the very areas that they felt so, deficient in. And the thing is that they were bright enough to tell me exactly how they should respond on the fly. They could pass a paper and pencil test of what you need to do in these situations. The trouble was, in real time, that wasn't happening for them.
What happened? What did they do?
So it took a long time for them to respond to other kids. They weren't really aware of the social cues. They weren't tuned into paying attention, looking on purpose, what's going on over there in the cafeteria. And they just really were paper and pencil smart social skills.
If I was like that, maybe I'd be looking at you, and if you looked away, that might indicate to me that I've talked enough on that subject, and maybe it was time for me to move on, whereas they might just continue to say whatever it was, like, listen to me, look at me, right? Is that?
Exactly.
Okay.
So I'm also an trained improv actor.
Improv actor, wow.
And I love improv so much. It really helped me to become present, to become aware of the interactions that I was having and the effect that everything I said and did had on the other person, whether it was supportive or whether it was kind of bringing the whole energy down. And one day I was with my students, and they were just having a really hard time, and I felt so sad for them because they weren't enjoying the exercises that we were doing. And I said to myself, I'm going to just play a game. So I pulled out of my hat one of the improv games that we use when my group warms up before a show. And it's very simple. You just turn to the other person and you clap at the same time. So you can do it with me.
Okay, ready?
Okay, so we don't say ready or anything, no signals. We just have to figure out when the clap's going to happen. So, okay, so you get into a rhythm, but you're really creating this peripheral vision. You're focusing in on the other person. You're tuning in. And we were done playing, and the kids said to me, "We want to play more." And I was like, what is going on here? I don't play well in groups. I don't want to, socialize. Kids were saying, please, may we play some more?
You personally don't play well in groups?
No, they felt that way.
Okay, so they're saying, I don't play well in groups, but I played well in that group, and I want more of that good experience that I just had with you doing that game.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, of course, they couldn't articulate. They couldn't say all that, but that was like bright eyes. Yes, let's do more. I want to do this, right?
Yes.
Wow.
And it was this moment where my head almost exploded. And,
well, I'm glad it didn't.
And
I don't think that would have been a pretty scene.
No, but the light bulb went off. Yes. I just was like, wait a second. Improv teaches everything that I was trying to teach these students, but it was in real time. They were making eye contact because the game called for it, not because, make eye contact. You need to look people in the eye, which is really not a great thing to teach a person with autism anyway, because there's a lot of biology going on as to why they don't do that. But they can do it,
of
and
course.
if there's a motivating reason to do that.
Well,
So-
what I've noticed sometimes with kids with improv, if you teach them eye contact, they're like this.
Yeah, it's kind of
not
creepy.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy. It's not appropriate eye
Yes,
contact. It's
yes.
almost like they're boring a hole through your head kind of thing, rather than kind of tilting their head, getting information, giving information back, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
So what was the next thing? What happened?
I just started researching games and trying to figure out which one met my IEP goals and objectives.
Oh, there you go. Because you were not data driven, but you were specifically driven to be and do certain kinds of activities.
Yeah, I had to be
accomplish goals and objectives that were on their plan.
Mm-hmm. And I found all these games that actually met those goals and objectives. And so we made videos about it. We had so much fun exploring this new way of being together. And slowly I developed the program so that it was improv based. But then I've meditated since I was 19, and I just feel that mindfulness is a way to be present in this world.
Okay, let's back up, because
Sure.
I'm not sure everybody knows what mindfulness is. I'm not sure everybody knows what improv is.
Okay.
You and I
Okay.
know what improv
True.
is because we've done improv. So I think most people think of Drew Carey and what's my line or whose line is it anyway, that kind of
Exactly.
thing. So tell me, and improv has some very specific rules. You think it's just playing and there's no games, but there's rules in improv.
There are
Correct?
rules,
Right.
and the rules help structure the scenes or the games. And that's one of the things that was so great, is that my students who are on the spectrum finally had rules. These were a roadmap, a way to be with other people.
And they love rules.
They love rules. So
And they want to please, my opinion, for the most part. I mean, most kids on the spectrum are some of the nicest, most gentle, soft, caring people that I've ever met in my whole life. And they want to please the other person. They want to fit in. They want to do the right thing. They just need to know how. They know why. They just need to know how, right? And when. The timing sometimes is off, right?
Exactly, that is true. So the combination, so improv is making things up on the fly.
Okay, so we can't plan. I can't have this little agenda in my head, like when I'm with Rob and I need to do blah, 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 and have like this little agenda to go by. I need to be really open and meditate and aware and be in the moment, present. Okay.
Sure. Yes, you need to be flexible, because what you were thinking that you were going to do now isn't going to happen because the person responded in a different way. If you stuck with your plan, it wouldn't fit. It wouldn't make sense. So you let go of your planning and you really tune in. You listen on purpose, you look on purpose, you think on purpose, and you let go to the moment, which is being present. And in that present moment, there is a spontaneous reaction that's tuned into the other person and adds on and build. The basic foundation of improv is yes and.
Yes and. I love that. So tell me, what does yes and mean?
Yes and means that you accept whatever is offered and you add on to it.
Okay.
So if I was in a scene,
Okay.
and I was fiddling with some controls here, and I thought that I was on a plane getting ready to take off, and my scene partner comes in and they say, "Oh my God, I love that we're using this new device to beam us to Mars." Guess what? We're going to Mars.
Right. You're not going to say, no, we're going back home, or we're going to Cincinnati. You just say, yes, and we're going to see Martians along the way, or we're going to bring back some aliens, or whatever, right? So
Yes,
yes.
exactly.
Oh.
And improv is also very supportive. There are a lot of rules in improv, and I've just picked 5 for the program that I use, and they all are about listening, accepting, building, supportive, being courageous, and one of them is I got your back.
Okay.
So what we do is we don't let anybody sink on stage. We're there for each other. We want you to look good. So nobody tries to steal a scene.
No.
And no one tries to playwright what's going to happen. So there is this awareness that I care about you and how you look on stage, and I am going to do all the actions and all of the improv techniques that I know to make sure that that happens.
Just to support you as much as possible.
Yeah.
So it's not about me looking good necessarily, but it's about helping you to look good and to help us look good together as a pair as we perform.
Right. So if you distill that, it's about empathy and kindness.
Wow. That's really amazing.
So that's when I brought in the cognitive behavioral therapy and the mindfulness. So, because I wanted to support that aspect of improv, because as you know, schools are places where there's a lot of mean behavior going on. And it happens very subtly. It happens under the radar. It happens in the places where the adults are not. And you'd think, well, why don't we then put adults in those places? You can't be everywhere.
Right. But I'm also thinking sometimes adults aren't very nice to each other either. And I'm just imagining, I mean, it's true, right? We're not always as kind or as gentle or generous as we could be with each other.
Right.
So I'm imagining that if I was to see you and maybe I had an acquaintance with you, but I didn't really know you, and I'd say, hi, Robin, I'm Cate. And you're like, I know who you are.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, and if that was to happen, I'm just wondering, in an improv scene, how would you handle that?
Well, that's not yes and.
Right.
It might be a little bit of yes.
Because I'm reaching across the table, hi, Robin, I'm Cate. And you're like, I know who you are. That's not yes and.
Right.
So you would say corrective feedback would be, you need to say yes, and I'm Robin. And
yes and.
It's good to see you again, Cate. And then you take it to the next level and what would happen next kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I get it.
So, but kids are, you know, a lot of kids are in pain. I work with kids from second grade through college, and some of my second graders come in with the weight of the world on their shoulders.
Oh, that's such a horrible burden.
Well, it is, but you know, life is what it is, and there are tragedies that happen. There are parents who have, you know, aren't able to be present for whatever reason, and there are a lot of kids who come into school and they are hurting. So one of the things I wanted to do is figure out a way to support them emotionally with that.
So connecting them helps them, I would think, supporting them emotionally. If you can connect somebody and say, you're not alone, I had that too, or there's other kids that have that. Is that kind of what you're doing? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, exactly. So usually the groups are about 8 to 10 kids.
That's
and
a huge group.
Oh, it works really well.
But
yeah.
Still, you know, you think of maybe somebody that does your kind of work, and maybe 2 or 3 kids, maybe 4, 8 to 10. I think I would have my hands full.
I do, but I love every handful. It's just amazing to have the good fortune to be with these kids and to be able to share with them the little bit of wisdom that I've learned over my life. So I really, really appreciate that.
I love that. I love that. That's great.
So one of the things I teach them is a technique called flip the mood.
Flip the mood.
And I'm just making a poster for it now.
Okay, yeah,
but
let's see.
I don't know if you can see it.
We can put it right here, probably.
Oh, okay. Well,
Just hold it still in front of you.
So flip the mood is a way to deal with difficult emotions. And it is, FLIP is an acronym for feel where it is in your body. Because one of the things that happens is, I'm going to put this down.
Okay.
One of the things that happens is that we end up having an emotion and it goes to our head. And it ends up dispersing into thoughts that can lead us into dangerous territory. Anger, and it might lead us to do something we'll regret. So as soon as you feel it in your body, you
find it?
You find it, and it's amazing how it can be in your chest or your shoulders or your head or your gut, and so you now are back in touch with your body,
nice.
Which is an important step.
Okay.
And so that's feel. Label is the L in flip, and label is you name it to know it. So what is it I'm feeling? So So let's say I have this thing in my gut. What is it that I'm feeling? Oh, I am really nervous because I have a test today. Okay, so next step is the I in flip, and that is it is. It is what it is. You feel that way.
Okay.
Accept it. allow it.
Okay.
It is what it is. So most kids at that point, kind of breathe a sigh of relief. And then the P in flip is plan. What do you need to do right now to get some relief? And sometimes we brainstorm a list of things ahead of time so that they can pull out something from their pocket and it might say, go listen to music, call my friend, draw, paint, take a walk. So there's so many things that we can do to give us some relief. It's not denying the feeling, it's accepting the difficult emotions. It's pushing them away that causes the trouble. Life is hard for kids. It's hard for, everybody has to figure out how to deal with all the things that go on in life.
Absolutely.
And we need to give kids the tools to do that so that they don't take it out on other kids, so that they don't shut down, and we continue with this beautiful connecting that happens when we're real, when we accept our emotions and we sit in our sadness, we sit in our pain, we sit in our discomfort, and we know that by doing that, we can go into a deeper place of connection with ourselves and therefore with other people.
So if somebody's saying they're feeling anxious, like let's say you're feeling anxious and you're telling me that with the feel it and then you label it, so that's the FL. And then it is what it is. So I'm feeling anxious. I'm a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. So maybe it's in my palms. My palms are sweating. Would you, and then a plan for it. So the plan would be maybe I would stretch, take a deep breath, that kind of thing. Then would you tell me, well, maybe I'm a little anxious too because I didn't study for that test as much as I could have or should have, kind of thing. And so we're going to figure out what is the next step. Like maybe if you don't do well in that test, then we'll take the test again. Or how does that work out? Do you have to negotiate sometimes with the kids in the group to figure out what the plan is? Or
it's amazing what happens when you really do get to that acceptance place.
Okay.
Because another rule of improv is, there are no mistakes. And that might sound like, of course there are mistakes. But, if you accept life as it comes to you, and you did something that you don't feel good about, didn't study enough for that test or whatever, so how can you learn from that? So instead of beating yourself up about it, which we all do, we all get into these cognitive distortions that happen where we start labeling ourselves as, oh, you're so stupid or whatever. So we teach the kids one of the things about mindfulness is you learn to watch your thoughts. So if thoughts like that come in, you recognize them as these intruders that aren't helping you get to where you want to go. Where you want to go is to be your best self.
Okay.
And so if I can sit with the discomfort of not having studied enough, and I can be kind to myself and say, okay, how can I learn from this? Yeah, I got to put in more time studying so I don't feel this way again. You see, you're your own best friend.
Right. So you're giving yourself the advice and helping yourself to problem solve for the next time so that perhaps you won't feel as anxious, and that will reduce some of the anxiety level and make it so you're more prepared. And then when you get the test back, it's a reality check, like either I did do the right amount of studying or I didn't do the right amount of studying, or and how I need to proceed as far as my planning for the next opportunity to do well.
Exactly.
To learn, right?
Yes. So all of life becomes learning.
Which is really life.
Right.
Most of life is not in the classroom. Most of life is, because you go to school for what, 18 years, 12, whatever. You go to school for a while, but that's not your life.
Right, exactly. One of the things that kids need to do, even to get to this point, is to learn to make friends with their breathing. And we teach something called slow breath practice, which is really just slowing your breath down so that you're aware of it. So you breathe in for 4, you hold it for 2, and then you breathe out for 5. And we do about 4 or 5 of these breaths every time we meet.
Nice.
And what it does is it helps kids to realize that they have a technique with them 24/7.
Nice.
Their breath, which connects them to their body, and also when you take a slow breath, especially that long out breath, you are signaling to your body that everything is okay. You know, your nervous system relaxes, and I use this to fall asleep. I wake up often at night, and the thing that always puts me back to sleep is just taking 4 or 5 slow breaths, following the breath in and out. My mind wanders, I bring it back to my breath. Very simple. And kids love this, and they use it. One boy taught it to his mother, who was really having a hard time, and they meditate together now.
Aww,
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, that's really teaching the little things too, and appreciating the little things is what I see happening a lot of the time. Just being aware of things, noticing things, and giving that back to each other in a group situation. Yeah. So you said all roads lead back to compassion and kindness. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more? No?
Wow. I said that?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. No, I believe that, so I'm not surprised. Well, I think that the way that we are going to solve any of the things that ail us is by being kind to ourselves, being compassionate to ourselves, because how we treat ourselves is how we treat other people.
Absolutely.
And so teaching empathy and compassion and kindness, making those the way that we want to be in this world, and sharing that with kids, and having posters up around schools about this, and celebrating that, and really focusing on how you can do that, because it takes an education. That's why social emotional learning, you know, is so important to be in every school. How are kids going to learn all this unless somebody teaches it to them? We all learn it kind of by hit or miss, and some miss. And when you do miss, then you could have a life that is a lot less happy than you might have had if you knew how to deal with difficult emotions, if you knew how to develop empathy towards others. You know, that's why imagination is so great, and we do a lot with imagination.
Tell me about it. What's the relationship between imagination and empathy? I've never really thought too much about that.
Yeah, well, it's the idea that you could put yourself into somebody else's situation.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Right?
I get that.
Yeah. So to develop an imagination is you can think about the past and how things didn't work out, and instead of going down that guilt, deprecating path, you say, well, what could I do differently next time? So you imagine what you could do differently next time. And then you use it for the present. Here I am. Maybe I said something in an interview that I wasn't crazy about. So I use my imagination, okay, how am I going to do it differently now? And in this moment, I make a different choice.
Okay.
And then we imagine the future, and we might think of the possibility from the field of dreams that is, pretty unlimited. And we imagine ourselves in that, we feel it. And we have a lot of exercises with kids where they do imagine their happy place, they imagine the things that they want to come, and having those things in their lives. And we play games to help them do that. And we do mindfulness to help them think about other people, and they actually think about sending those people love.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really powerful.
It is.
And to me, I imagine somebody just almost standing with their hands open in an open field with this big open sky in a prairie kind of place, and just like everything is infinite and open, and you're breathing more deeply and just feeling more connected and not so alone and isolated.
I feel like I have so much more to say, and I just want to say that one of the things that really makes this program work is play.
Okay.
Because kids start out playing, and they play with everyone. My grandson goes to the zoo in 2 seconds flat, he's like holding hands with another kid at the zoo, and they're going to, and he tells them what he knows about the zoo, and they have so much fun. And we lose that. We start to get self-conscious, at about, elementary school, upper elementary school, we start to get self-conscious and feel like, where do I fit in? Why, the kids that we might have played freely with, now other kids might be judging them, so we jump on that.
But I think the leaders almost, if you look at any school situation or group situation, the people who lead, who kind of stand out, are the ones who are more willing to play, they're more open to other people, and they're more, my opinion, to accept everybody in the group and to kind of say, come on, let's do this. And they just have that spontaneity that occurs. Do you agree with that?
Yes, that's why I want to teach kids to be resilient and confident and feel like they belong. When you feel you belong, when you really feel like you belong, and it doesn't matter what other people think, and that's a hard one to get past, but there is a road to get there.
Absolutely.
And when you believe that you belong, and you believe everybody belongs, that is when the magic happens.
Right. It's like one person. All it takes is one person to reach their hand across, say, hey, play with me. Come play with me. Let's do this. And let's have fun. Because I love to laugh. And I'm just like, I love to play games. So I'm always kind of messing around. Like, and my family is like, can you be a little serious? Like, no, why should I? I haven't been serious my whole life. Why do I have to start now? So what else do you want to say? Thank you. We're running out of time. We just have a couple of minutes left. So what else do you want to say? I know you want to, and I can always have you back, Robin, because you're a lovely, wonderful guest.
Oh my gosh,
yes.
Thank you so much. Well, it's there's so much that we can give kids and teach them so that they feel better about themselves.
And it doesn't have to be gifts.
No, but they are gifts.
They are gifts, but it's not like it's wrapped up and I have to go shopping for it. And the other thing I'm thinking too is put the phone down. Whoops, I really put it down.
You did.
Yeah, but like that digital device is probably not helping with their social emotional skills.
That's true. So we need to counter that with increased social emotional learning in schools. And that really is the key. But it's the key before phones too.
Right.
Because when I was growing up, there were mean kids who,
of course.
It's
but I'm thinking kind of along that same line, something just popped into my head is there's so many apps now for everything, and there's apps for social emotional skill development, and they use emojis and little.
Those things are great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about that.
Well, the phone is a tool.
Right.
So we use it for the what it can give us that maybe other things can't, and then we need to put it aside so that we're face to face, so that we're interacting, and so that kids see teachers having good relationships. That's really important too. I could do a whole show about teachers and
to
how
model that behavior.
To model that behavior, but also to get the support to be emotionally, healthy. I mean, I was a teacher for 37 years, and it is a grind. It is a grind to show up every day and be your best self. And I see so many teachers who do that. I consult and lead groups in Old Saybrook Public Schools. I am overwhelmed with how incredibly these teachers give to kids and give to each other. And it just is another way that we need to support teachers so that they feel good about being in school and they have this open-heartedness towards their students, which, they need support in doing that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This has been just